welcome to a special interview with some of the pillars of the Northeast region of the Porsche Club of America. This is our 60th anniversary year, and and I'm the current president, Bill Seymour, and one of the honors that I have as the current president is to hold on to a silver Porsche that was awarded to our region in 1961 as part of the fact that we ran the Porsche parade for that year. But this was back in the days when the regions ran the Porsche parade, not national. And this Porsche has the names of all the presidents on it, underneath it, on the bottom. And the current president gets to hold on to it. And if I go back and look at this, I see that, maybe I need to put on my glasses for this, that in 1970 it says, and 1971, Norm Brust, says N.T. Brust, was the president of the region, and we have Norm with us today, Norm Brust. And then it says in 1978, Tom Tate was the president of the region, and that's Tom right there.
So now, and if we don't leave the 356 model for an instant, because during my tenure, I passed it to the next person, who I think was Pam Sanborn. And in the process of turning it over at the annual dinner, the car was dropped. I think there was some alcohol involved. And we broke one of the wheels off the rear axle. And we swore everybody at the annual dinner to secrecy as we took it to a silversmith the following week and had it repaired at cost to the club of like $12, as I remember. And nobody was ever supposed to know that we got a flat in Barry's 356. That was 1979.
Norm, starting with you, what year did you join the Northeast region?
Gotta say it was 66. My car is a 63, and I bought it used in 66 and joined PCA at that point.
Norm, go through the chronology of the different Porsches that you've had. Starting with the first Porsche that you had when you first joined the club, 63, and then
Strangely enough,
what you still have now. Have you had other Porsches as well?
Well, if you remember, back in those days, you couldn't join the club unless you had a car. You had to put the serial number of the car on your application.
You still have to do that today.
And if you didn't have a serial number,
right,
you weren't going to be a member. Yeah.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was living in Winchester, commuting to Salem on 128. I was a Volkswagen nut for years before that. And the Volkswagen engines of the day had a habit. They didn't have a tach, number one. Some of them didn't even have speedometers in the early days. But the Volkswagens had a tendency to swallow a valve.
On cylinder number 4.
Is it 4? I thought it was 3.
It's 3.
Yeah. Three.
The one that heats up.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever it was, I did it. More than once. So the number of cars I had, you could buy a $25 Volkswagen.
And drive it home.
And drive it
yeah.
home. Yeah. So I got tired of doing that. And one of my technicians at work had a 356. And I was at the stage in life where my wife and I would have discussions on, are we going to buy an airplane, a sailboat, or a car?
Or have a kid.
No, we had 2 kids at that point.
Right.
We ended up with 4 eventually. Bottom line, we decided on a car because it was a compromise. I agreed I'd do time trials only, no wheel to wheel, but I could do speed. So I went through several Volkswagens and ate them up. This technician said to me, you know, you've got to buy a Porsche. I didn't really know that much about Porsche, except it was a bigger Volkswagen.
Right.
And in those days, it literally was. So I ended up buying this 356, driving it, left the company, kept the car, did a lot of PCA stuff. From there, where did I go from there?
Well, you had a 63 cab when I met you. And
Yeah.
I think that's the only car I've ever known you drive.
Okay. I had several Volkswagens. I had a 1963 DKW convertible,
Oh,
You see a lot of those around.
yeah, right.
three-cycle.
Two-cycle, three-cylinder.
Three-cylinder,
Did it freewheel?
yes.
Yeah.
Freewheel,
Yeah.
3 independent ignition systems. A hell of a car to drive. There was no weight to it.
I was going to say they were like 1,000 pounds. Yeah, weight nothing.
Yeah.
After the parade in '70, I pulled away from PCA, put the Porsche in the barn, because I knew I didn't want to lose that car, and put it in the barn and left it there till we moved to Bridgewater, and John Merrifield, do you remember him?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I had a private consulting practice, and he was one of my clients, and he had the blue 356. He bought a silver Speedster, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't go to see him, and so I dragged the Porsche out of the barn, spent 2 years going through it all, and my first real event was what was the East Coast parade in Mystic around 2000.
2008, I think. It was, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Whatever it was the one down there, and
So you parked it for like 25, 30 years?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but somewhere along the way you worked for Rietzel Porsche Audi. What years was that?
That was 1970.
Okay, 70. All right.
You know,
Because when I was at Claire in 72, you were still here.
Yes, I stayed with Rietzel till 77 or 78.
Yeah.
And while you were working there, you I'm sure drove a lot of 911s.
Oh yeah.
But you never broke down and bought one.
I didn't have to. I had a deal done.
Yeah. Why buy it, right?
Yeah. Why?
What's your question?
Yeah. That's a good point. So you had plenty of but could you take one of them off to do a time trial or anything?
Oh yeah.
You did. You would take a 911 from the dealership.
Yeah, Wolfgang Rietzel.
Don't want to let them hear that. Sorry.
They were low mileage demos. We all
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we autocross 914s. Every salesman at Claire had a 914, and we encouraged them because again, we weren't open on Sundays back then.
Right.
Okay, we encouraged them to take the cars out on the weekends to show them, to demonstrate them, and so they all went to autocrosses with us. We actually had a salesman at Claire, and it's the only one I ever know of. Maybe you know of another one, who went to an orange event and at a relatively high rate of speed slid sideways off the runway, dug 2 wheels in, and rolled his 914 demo.
Ooh.
Which he was fine, which became his new car.
You
Roland Tyner. He was from
you-
Alabama.
You flip it, you own it.
You
Is it-
flip it, you own it. That's right. Yeah, don't even bother to call the insurance company. The body shop that we had at the time, sort of put it back together, wedged the windshield back in, and off he went in his
Yep.
new 914.
And they docked his pay to
Yeah, to
to
cover
make
it.
up for it. Do you
Right.
think we could take the GT2
It
RS?
seems unlikely.
You know, it's
Right.
it's Sunday tomorrow.
Yeah, right, but they're open.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Right.
So that's a good story. I wouldn't have guessed that one. That'll
Yeah.
make the headlines. Yeah.
But yeah, we all took the cars out on weekends, you know, because Porsche was still a very small manufacturer. There were very few dealers. I think there were 3.
That goes
New England
back
area.
to my earlier comment about what the club did with Porsche. The club followed what the Porsche vehicle was doing
Right.
in terms of the car itself and its performance and so forth, and the kind of the personality of the group. Porsche in 70, when did they go to the long body? 9/11. 74.
Well, no, you mean short wheelbase cars were 65, 66, 67, and 68 were long wheelbase. But you're talking about long nose versus the bigger one, 74.
74, that was the one I'm thinking of.
Right.
What was happening in the automotive world was the creation of the luxury 2-passenger sports sedan.
Right.
It wasn't really a sedan, but Dr. Porsche created a car whose goal was to collect and develop an automobile, a high-performance automobile with his name on it. What happened when they went to the long nose was they created the luxury personal car. Corvette did not do that, but the Thunderbird did. Thunderbird left the sports car focus and created a personal
A luxury car.
luxury car.
Right.
And then you had other cars come along that either went one way or the other.
Yeah, at the time in 1974, did people see that were the Porsche purists saying, "Oh my God, it's not a sports car anymore"? It's
Oh
too
yeah,
big"?
oh yeah, it was
Oh,
too big,
yeah.
too heavy. Oh yeah. Now remember, 74 was the year we were required to do those 10-mile-an-hour bumpers. So they had the accordion things on the side.
Right.
So that added about 300 pounds to every car. These front and rear energy absorbing bumpers that the federal government required, and everybody moaned and complained something awful. And then very shortly after that, 77, 78 came out with a 928. Well, then the world was then it was over. You know, it's like it was a water-cooled V8 that can't possibly be a Porsche. They were trying to compete with Mercedes.
They couldn't get over the 914 being
Right.
a Porsche.
Right.
Right.
There was,
But and then going back earlier when we were outside, you were saying when the 911 was first introduced, that there was oh boy, this
Oh,
is way
yeah,
too,
that
this is too
was
expensive. This is nobody will buy this. This is
Right.
yeah, that was another whole
right.
issue. And they created the registry, 356 registry.
For 356 owners only, because they felt like the club with its new 911 was leaving everything we knew behind.
Yes.
And the car at that point, now they were starting to get really complicated, and you couldn't work on it at home by yourself. You know.
Interesting.
Now, I joined the club initially as a student in Washington, D.C. in '63. All right, I had a white 59 sunroof, 58 sunroof coupe. All right, again, couldn't join unless you had a car serial number, so I joined. And the whole thrust of the club at Potomac region was to service the cars. The club at that point had this love-hate relationship with dealers. First of all, dealers were the only supplier of parts. You could not buy parts anywhere for your car unless it came from a dealer. There were no auto supply stores. Nothing existed, right? And everybody felt like the dealer was charging way too much for parts and for service.
Yeah, and they wanted like
and that's when they
$4.
started.
They wanted $4 for a wheel bearing or something
Yeah, right.
like that. So yeah.
Right. So that's when they started this whole business with people writing books about how to fix your Porsche, okay? Which was probably a follow-up from that guy that wrote that book on how to live with your VW from years before.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And, and people were getting into the hands-on thing, but people in the club were starting to turn their nose up at some of these people that were buying 911s and didn't know how to check the oil. Right? That was a standard. These people, they just have a lot of money, they don't know what they're doing. And we all thought part of membership in the club was maintaining your own car. That was what you were supposed to do. And for a lot of us, students and so forth, that's what's what allowed us to keep them on the road, because we couldn't afford to pay somebody. You had to just go buy a book.
And that's when the 356 registry started? Was
yeah.
that, so, because, oh my God, the 911 is,
They're going the wrong direction.
right.
Right.
So there was, originally with the 911, and then again in 74 with the long nose, there's another, these are too big.
Another concern, right.
And then we had the 924, the air-cooled, water-cooled front-engine cars that, oh my God, this is a
Right.
travesty here. Were there any other break points like that?
No, well, of course, that's the whole air-cooled, water-cooled 1999. All right, everything 98 and earlier is air-cooled. Everything after that was water-cooled heads because they'd reached the limit of how much they could cool a four-cylinder engine with air. And although the cars, each year, every year, the cars, going up all the way back to 356s, have gotten bigger, heavier, faster. It's like, what? Bigger, heavier, faster? How do they do that? I mean, bigger and heavier should have made them slower. Never did. Okay? And through the years, they changed the technology of suspension and everything else to keep ahead of, but every car was always better than the one before it. Always. Never had a bad one. Now, they went down a couple of rabbit holes that didn't work. My sense was they went to the 928 because Mercedes was selling a lot of SLs. And they saw that marketplace and said, hey, we could sell a V8 highway, Autobahn cruiser, with our technology, let's try it. So they put an engine in the front, the transmission in the rear, and they had a lot of technology, and the Weissach rear end where everything moved around, but there just really wasn't a big enough market to sustain it. But what did get sustained was the 911. They just kept plugging them out. They just kept improving them each year, every year. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. So to the point where, as you say, now you got a, GT2 RS rocket ship that I shouldn't be allowed to drive because they're just way too capable.
In that period, when they started putting other cars out other than the 911, if you looked out to the rest of the automotive world,
Right.
they were stumbling through the same problems in a slightly different way depending on who the car was.
Right, you don't think about it now, but the 1976 Corvette, top of the line, was 185 horsepower. It was because of all the emission control requirements and so forth. I mean, cars during that period were not good cars.
No.
Yeah.
And somehow Porsche made it through all of that and then some.
Right. Go back to the muscle car era. Nowadays, any of the standard Porsches will run and hide from anything that we used to think were fast back in those days.
Right. Yeah, but now you can buy a minivan with 300 horsepower. Hello.
Yeah.
We do a lot of, I'm a member of the 356 group, and we do a lot of backcountry road driving. And what we look for is a classic picture book, New England Road, stone walls and turns and twists. And
minimal traffic with a restaurant at the end.
yes.
Back to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We do these drives on country roads, and you're driving your car, 356, at top speed for the 356. And then you got to stop because some lady at a stoplight in her SUV that's too big for her to drive, and kids in the back, pulls out of a side road and goes away and leaves you and you can't catch her. But we're having fun driving. And she's standing on the seat to turn over her shoulder to look out the back window so she won't back into a car.
Yeah.
It's that whole automotive industry was going through an upheaval, a redefinition, and with the electric cars and with the self-driving cars, the cars as we know it probably will disappear.
Probably, I mean, but as far as the club is concerned, and these are, the current club is now facing with a different group, the same sort of concerns that we faced 30, 40 years ago.
Yes.
Because now you've got SUVs, Macans and Cayennes, where do they go? Now you got Panameras, these are all Porsche products. How do you include those people into the club? Okay, and at the same time keep them amused and occupied, and we said the same thing 40 years ago when they came out with 924s and 944s. This isn't our market. What are we going to do with these people? You know, but somehow they all got.
Yeah, but
they all came in.
And again, it is something that we wrestle with, and we need to wrestle with. But it still seems to me that there's a lot more commonality between the 914 and the 924 and the 356.
Looking back now, yes.
Looking back now, but
right. But at the time, they were what we perceived as huge differences.
But still, the people who bought a 924 or bought a 914 were looking for that car to drive, to have fun driving.
Yes, right.
And there were people buying a new Cayenne who were taking their kids to school and
Private school.
and they're not
Yeah.
private school, but they're not necessarily looking to drive it for fun.
Right.
So the umbrella that is the Porsche Club, he has to wrestle with that issue.
Right. Is it going to continue to include all of those people? Some of those people? I don't know. I mean, now as Norm just pointed out, now we've got a wave of the future of self-driving cars. Where do they fit in a club that is all about driving? It's like, what?
Yes.
You know.
Well, and again, I mean, it is a club that's about driving, and it was certainly started as a club that's about driving. But one of the things that's been mentioned today that's interesting to me was that which I really hadn't thought of as much, is it was not just a club that was about driving, it was also a club about maintaining your cars.
Yes.
There was a support.
That was a very big part of it.
Oh,
Right.
that was-
A support
Yes.
group so that you could maintain your cars yourself.
Right.
Yeah,
Which
that,
is still, the club does that, to a
Yes.
certain extent now. But obviously, we have plenty of people in the club for whom that's not an important issue.
Right.
But, yeah, and going forward, where will the electric cars fit in? They'll run around faster than the rest of ours, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom, how about you?
Actually, I joined the Northeast region in 1971, but as a student at the University of Maryland, I had joined the Potomac region in 1963. But back in those days, as I recall, the dues were something like $12 a year, and for a couple of years as a student, they were just sort of out of my reach. So I had an interruption, if you will, in my membership, and I basically, National counts me as a member from 71 on. So I've been a member for 48 years. Yeah.
When you joined the club, what did you do? Back in the late 60s and the 60s and the early 70s, what activities did the club do, and what did you guys participate in?
if you look closely at the club and what it's happening, it followed the kind of the evolution of the automobile in general. A lot of people did not have cars in those days, and many of them who did was kind of a do-it-yourself thing, you know, old song about get out and get under. And the club was evolved to support that mentality. People did a lot of their own work. They did a lot of creative things. Things like this book here. Porsche Technical Manual. This was not a Porsche book. Somebody
Right, this is
created it.
Henry Elfink. And all of
Yes,
us had one of these in the car.
Yeah.
You had to.
Yes,
Because inside is pictures and descriptions of what you can take apart on the side of the road. And
Why,
put
why
back
didn't you
together.
just go on YouTube?
Yeah,
You
right.
could figure out how to do things on YouTube, no?
They can now.
Yeah,
Yes.
That was our YouTube.
yeah,
This,
The glove box.
this was the phone of the day.
right.
And this one, I think, is even more telling. This was published by an engineer at Porsche, and it was meant to be carried by every Porsche mechanic, and it was specifically designed to fit the shirt pocket. You can pull that up, and there's
They had
everything
better eyes back in those days.
from
I mean, there's everything from light bulb charts to wattage to torque on lug nuts and head bolts and anything you want relative to technical settings on the car are in there. Yeah.
And you could check serial numbers on engines, transmissions, body parts,
Right, place them. Right.
and it was designed to tell you that somebody put this car together, by the way, and it was not a pure, clean car. This is a shot of me taking a pace trip around the track at Briar, which was actually built as a motorcycle track, but had a nice, really road course. It was nice and short and tight. It was built for motorcycles, and Porsches loved it. But this car is really two cars. Well, it was complete except for an engine when I bought it, and I built an engine for it. But the car, the body, was built from two separate
Cars put together.
cars put together, yeah.
And it
And
has
that
all the
was not
markings
at all
of all the
uncommon.
markings of a speedster.
Yes. It's a half of this speedster and a half of
So
that
you had two
speedster.
halves. Okay.
Yes.
But it wasn't originally a speedster.
I think we've seen that happen recently.
Yeah. Was Briar where the New Hampshire Speedway is?
Yes.
It's in Laconia, New Hampshire.
Yeah,
It became
and
NHIS.
so the Briar sports car track preceded the oval,
Yes,
Yes.
and then they built the oval.
right.
No, there
And-
was an
and-
oval there too. They had a tiny oval and a bigger road track. If you've driven the road track lately,
Yeah.
they reversed the directions.
But does the current road course, it's similar to what
The
Briar
top of
was?
the hill, all right, on the
Yeah.
outside of the bowl, is the top of the hill of the old Briar racetrack.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
there isn't
really-
much else left.
That's about
That's
it. yeah.
all that's left.
Yeah,
yes.
that's pretty much.
Yeah.
Maybe the bowl just before it, if you're going that way. All right, there was a bowl there, but we went the other direction back then.
Right.
And,
But
and
the oval that you see him in here, turn 10, okay, became what is now the oval, except the oval now is like 5 times bigger.
Right. So this was in the late '60s. And what year did they build the?
Keith Breyer, I think,
oval?
sold that in the mid-70s, 76, 77, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And it took them like 3 years to build it, to put the whole thing together.
Right.
But they had the road course outside of the super speedway, if you will. They had the road course from the very beginning. They
Right.
fully intended to keep part of that track.
Right.
this car at Briar, I could just barely clear 110 miles an hour. And that was coming into the foot of the hill, going up the hill. And this course was used by Corvettes of Mass, so they had some heavy-duty horsepower there. You go up the hill to the crest of the hill, and it dropped off on the
Down into a
opposite side
right-hand
of the
bowl.
hill. But, and this was the thing that got them all, it went up the hill as a straightaway, and the track dropped away. You couldn't see it until you cleared it, but they had put a slight dogleg in that at the top of the hill, and unless you knew the course, you were in trouble because you come up the hill thinking you're going straight, and you weren't. All of a sudden you're airborne, literally, a Camaro or a Corvette. You'd come up this hill, the blind hill.
Yeah, you had to turn before you pressed
And
the
you
hill.
had to turn, but you were going so fast that if you turned in the air before you came back down, you'd lose it. And there was a path into the woods, literally.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have had a body shop franchise sitting 20 feet farther.
Right.
Then you went down the hill into a carousel, which dropped away very quickly, a short straight, and then another carousel dropping steeply again to the left, and you straightened out probably no more than 100, 200 feet before you were at the straight in front of the pits, and that was the only place you had time to read your instruments.
Right.
So did you ever drive that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, went up weekends and did COM events.
Yeah. What was the last year that you could have driven on that course?
76, I think.
Something like that,
75, yeah. I'd have to look it up, but
So, and then you said Lime Rock opened in,
59.
57.
But see but Lime Rock was a road course. Lime Rock was SCCA. So you had to have a race car. You couldn't just go out on like we could do today with DEs and driving tours and stuff like that. You had to have a competition license, you had to have a car that passed tech, and I mean, these are dedicated race cars. So nobody went to Lime Rock unless you went to watch a race, okay? We weren't allowed out there. But COM cut this deal with Keith Breyer, all right, and they would have what they call time trials, okay? And we had different classes for different cars, and all the clubs participated, even though it was a Corvette's a mass event. And they would put you in a class based upon, what you were driving. And I'll never forget it, because you did one warm-up lap, you did one timed lap, and then one more lap, what they call the cool down, to get off the track, okay? So they timed one lap, but you made 3. And I remember the first time I went up in an SC sunroof coupe, a 65 that I was particularly pleased with. Nice street car, white car, red interior, all like brand new. And I pull into the pit area, and it was all gravel. Nothing was paved, okay? There were outhouses, there was no plumbing, there was no running water, okay? And that was the pit area. And this guy pulls in alongside of me with another 356, no windows, it's gutted, the exhaust is loud, and I'm looking at this thing, and it's a race car. It's got a roll cage and all that. Wow, whoa, what class do you run? And he goes, yours. And he ran circles around me because the car was light by about 500 pounds, and I'm a street car on street tires.
Okay.
But we all went to the COM event because they would let us run. I mean, you couldn't run an SCCA event with a street car.
right,
So, and we'd go up there pretty much on a regular basis.
was,
Now, PCA had their autocrosses out at Orange,
Yeah.
right? But they only 2 or 3 times a year, and it was a 2-hour drive out there. I mean, we always went, but there weren't a lot of events out there, and it was on the runway out there.
is that the one that I went to,
Yeah.
the same place?
Yeah. Right.
And how, so that goes back to the
I don't know,
70s?
Yeah, early.
Just for the record, let me see if I can clarify something. So in the late 60s, there wasn't anything like a DE program that
No.
we have now. So there were occasionally autocrosses in Orange.
Right.
And there were, if you wanted to drive your car fast, then you could go to Breyer,
Right.
where it's, and when what
Anybody could run a Breyer with a
Right.
street car.
If you were a member of the PCA, you weren't necessarily an SCCA member, didn't have a racing car,
Right.
and you wanted to exercise your Porsche. You could go to the autocross, you could go to Breyer.
You
Was
go
there
to
anything else?
PCA autocross, you go to Breyer, which I don't think PCA ran any Breyer events. We always used somebody else's event.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we weren't big enough.
Right.
But you could also run, and during the summer there would be 8 or 10 autocrosses put on by SCCA, what they called Solo 2. Those were all street cars, and they ran at places like Shoppers World in Framingham. Now
Right.
this was back in the day when stores were closed on Sunday.
Right.
Okay, so these parking lots were all empty on Sundays. So we could go to a shopping center parking lot, and there were a lot of them around. We used to run, and we could park our stuff, take all the stuff out of the car, go through tech and run. SCCA would have 100 cars show up of all different versions. So if you wanted to exercise your Porsche and see how fast you were, these were single run, timed events, not wheel to wheel. And we had a lot of participation from PCA people with SCCA events. So.
Right. But there were no PCA events.
No.
There was no
not
autocross, no DE. So what events were PCA events?
Well, we had socials.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean,
We tried to put a program together when I was the president to have a monthly meeting every month. And
Yes.
We would go to some place, to do the social aspect of the club.
We do all kinds of things. Gymkhanas, we do regular rallies.
Right.
We did.
Although the rallies tended to be gimmick rallies. They weren't time, speed, distance.
Well, no, we
We did some.
put some in, but
Yeah.
you're right, they were mostly gimmick.
Right.
Back to the autocrosses in Wang's
Yep.
parking
Right.
lot.
Yeah.
Northeastern built their new campus out in Burlington. They ran,
and were those PCA events?
no,
No, SCCA.
Yes.
they were other auto
So,
clubs.
Right.
And we,
Although I have to say, and I think you would agree, at least in Mass, probably Corvettes and Mass had the greatest number of members, although we always kidded that nobody owned a Corvette. Right. But they had the greatest number of members in Porsche. The PCA group was second. There was no Miata club, all right? There was no BMW club. I mean, those clubs didn't exist.
Right.
Okay, so it was just really, like you said, it was a bunch of racers for a bunch of people with performance cars that wanted to figure out where they could drive it,
Right.
where you could take them.
Right.
We also ran monthly meetings, we had annual dinners, we didn't have tours, we didn't have driving tours. I don't think we ever really did that, unless you call it a rally.
well, we had these treasure hunts.
Right. I mean, kind of gimmick deals. So you had what they call poker rallies, right? Pages of instructions, okay, and your navigator told you where to go, and you come around the corner, and here'd be somebody with a deck of cards. You'd take a card, right? And at the end of the rally, you'd have 5 cards or 7 cards. You make the best poker hand you could out of the cards you drew,
Right.
and the best poker hand won the rally.
Right.
Now, you had to get enough cards to make a poker hand, so you couldn't get off track. But,
Right.
I mean, that made it less skill and more luck with the expectation that more
Right.
people would do it. And then we did that Fox and Hounds rally. Remember that one?
Yes,
You don't remember it as well as I do because I won. All right. And the reason I won was, and I'd only been up here like 3 months from Maryland. I had that SC coupe. Fox and Hounds rally, you sent a guy out on a Sunday morning, try this today, with little bags of flour. And he'd drive straight until he came to an intersection, and then he'd stop and he'd throw the bag of flour on the ground, and it would pop, and there'd be a little pile of flour. Now, obviously, these are rural roads, not main highways. So when you approached as one of the participants and you saw the little blotch of powder, okay, you knew that there's a chance he changed his direction there, right, left, or straight. You had 3 choices, okay? So if you turned, you thought, I think you might have turned right here. So if you turn right and you went 1/4 of a mile, if you didn't see another splash of powder, okay, you guessed wrong. So you go back, now you go straight. You go down that road, all right, if you found the patch of powder, then you keep going straight until another instruction, which was the powder, okay? So it was kind of a guessing game. And at that point, they basically said, well, if you guess right, you're going to win, because the way you won was to have the lowest mileage. Well, what they didn't realize was that, and these guys were running, at that point, 914s were out, they had 911s, I had a 356, it was like 1971, and what they didn't know was that if you backed up a 914 or a 356, it backed the mileage off the odometer. Okay? So if I went down, I had a neighbor of mine who was the navigator, so if I went down a side street and I didn't find the little powder designating the right direction, then I'd just back up to the main intersection and erase the mistake I had, okay? And so by the end of the rally, they went out and read your odometer mileage, and I was within 1/10 of a mile of a perfect score because I backed up and I got this great little trophy with a little fox head on it. It was great.
And you didn't bring it.
And I forgot to bring it. And it was the very first event. I hadn't lived in Boston 2 months, and I knew they had a club. I knew they were going to have an event, so we went around the Fox and House. We ran it. We met on Route 138 in Milton or Canton, right there on 128, which is now Dunkin' Donuts. Used to be Howard Johnson's. Yeah, that was fun.
And at the end, did you go and
At the end, we wound up at a state park someplace, and everybody brought a sandwich or something, and so you had a sandwich at the end, and they awarded the prizes. Yeah.
Now, also, I've heard stories that there were of Seymour Lisker
Yep.
having, was it pentathlons?
Yeah, he's the one who ran these gymkhana things where
Yeah.
you had to back up with an egg on a spoon and stuff like that
Yeah.
Seymour did, right? Yeah.
And then, but multiple events, and they would, like, they played miniature golf, they'd mix in some things that were not car,
Right.
but
Correct.
during
Norm
the-
would know more about that
Yeah.
because I didn't go to those because that didn't look like a lot of fun to me.
Well, they were kind of fun.
Right.
In a
Yeah, he did it for
different-
years.
Yeah. One of the ones that I had fun with, my wife and I put together what was billed as just a tour. And you had to find, you go down through Plymouth, and you had to find a statue up on the hill. And you had to find things like that. What we did is we started on a rest area up here on Route 3, and we handed people instructions with 1 minute delays between cars. What we did is give every other car the same set of instructions, and the alternate car in between a different set of instructions. And we set it up so that everybody started out in the same direction, following the same course, until we got away from the start point far enough so that we started giving this car, the odd cars, this set of instructions, even cars, this set of instructions, and we timed it so that they would pass each other
Just to shake their confidence, yeah. Right.
in opposite
Did, and
directions.
did you tell them in advance that they were getting different instructions?
No, that
They
was
all
the
thought
whole
they were on the
thing.
same,
Yeah.
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 And we had some kind of I've forgotten what it was, but virtually all of our events resulted in a prize.
Yeah.
We had a member who owned a gift store in downtown Boston. And he could get beer mugs, plates, cups, all kinds of pewter. And they were nice presents.
Yeah, a lot of pewter mugs. I remember the pewter mugs with the glass bottoms? All right, they were like beer mugs, but when you looked up, you could see through them. Yeah, they gave away a lot of those.
Yeah.
I don't remember those. I got beer mugs all over the house.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
More than you need, right?
Were there just strictly social events where you would just get together have a meal, have a...
Well, the annual dinner,
Yeah.
but no,
Than that, no?
Yeah,
No.
not really. The other big event that we had that grew into a pretty good sized event was what we called ice racing, all right, or ice
Oh,
trials.
yeah,
All
forgot
right,
that.
those were fun.
Yeah.
Those were all run at Newfound Lake in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Go up 93, instead of turning right to Winnipesaukee, turn left to Newfound Lake. The lake, still there obviously, was 7 miles long, 3 miles across. And if you had sufficient ice, and the town would go out and drill a hole, and if you had a foot of ice or more, they'd let you out on the ice. And we put cones out there, usually not a lot, because nobody wanted to go out and pick them up. All right, and then same thing, you won one car at a time, no wheel-to-wheel competition, and it was all timed. And so you timed the laps. And that grew into kind of a weekend event. And in fact, we would go up on a Friday night. There was a place up there called the Wagon Wheel Inn that had maybe a dozen rooms all in one building, and a bar and a restaurant downstairs. And so a bunch of us would go up on Friday night. You'd have what we call practice on Saturday, okay, and then the timed events were on Sundays. People could drive up from Boston, it's about an hour and a half, all right, and they could run on just the one day if they wanted to participate in that. But of course, a lot of us would make, a weekend out of it. And one of the really interesting points, of course, is that the conditions on the ice always changed. You could see the course, so it wasn't a matter of getting lost. And you could run anything. Now, we ran 914s, we ran 356s, we ran 911s, we ran Ford station wagons, didn't have minivans back
Carl
then.
Jackson.
But and Carl Jackson used to run his 911 up there all the time, and he was really good. He lived on the lake.
Did you know him
Right.
when he didn't have a Porsche?
No,
He started autocrossing
right,
in
little
a
white
country
65 coupe.
squire station wagon
Yeah.
and was a dynamite driver.
He was really good, little short guy. I'll never forget because he used to drive with the window down and his arm out the window. All right, like a James Dean kind of arm out the window thing. It was like, Carl, put both hands on the sword. No, I like to do it like this. And so I never forget. We went up there with a kind of a core group that ran the event. Stayed at the hotel. Saturday we had practice. Saturday night after, here we go with maybe a little liquor was involved. We decided we'd do night practice. Okay, and Bob Jondro, one of the members at the time, who I still am in touch with, he lives down in Connecticut now. He had a Ford Squire station wagon, was his winter ride. So we said, well, let's all just jump in the station wagon and go out and drive around on the ice and practice. All right, and we thought that was a great idea. So we left the restaurant and the bar, all jumped in the station wagon, went down onto the ice. He got it up to some decent speed, 60, 70 miles an hour. There were cracks in the ice that made it pretty uneven. Okay, and at one point, again, this was his winter beater, he hit a bump in the station wagon hard enough that it threw the battery up in the air and into the fan in the wagon. All right, and of course, the minute you blew up the battery, everything went dead in this Ford station wagon, and there were 6 of us in it. All right, and we're about a mile from shore. It's less than 0. The wind's blowing, and we had all just run out into the car from the bar with no jackets, no gloves, no hat, no nothing, and this thing rolls to a real quiet stop, and Bob says, who's gonna go get help? Not me, not my car. I'm not getting out there. The wind was whistling and it was really cold. Bob wound up walking back, getting a tow truck to come out and haul us back in. And we put a battery in it the next morning and the thing was fine and off we went. But yeah, I'll never forget the silence. And then the owner saying, who's gonna walk ashore and get help? Nobody. Yeah, it was fun. We had a great time. But yeah, we ran ice races up there for 10, 15 years anyway.
Yeah.
All my kids learned how to drive standard shift on the ice. Just pop the clutch, you can't stall it.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
And you could get a car completely out of control at like 11 miles an hour.
Yes.
So it was great practice. I mean, it really was. It was good.
Yeah.
I remember one year, I tracked the length of the course, and took time, and winning speed was like 24 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't fast.
Yeah.
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 I mean, some years we would show up in it at the snow. So we had a local guy who had a plow. So he would plow a course. Okay?
Yes.
So then you had to stay on the ice and out of the berms, because if you ran off, you get stuck. It'd be high center of the thing. And then the event would stop and you'd have to send a bunch of people out there to haul the car off of the berm, So, but yeah, it was relatively low speed stuff because you just couldn't get going fast enough on the ice.
Right.
I have friends that have now retired and moved to Florida, Georgia, and around that I met through the Porsche Club, like the Sanborns. We've raced for years and still keep in touch and still see them a few times a year. And all of that were connections made through PCA. Absolutely. Never held any national offices, but I've definitely held pretty much every office you can hold at the regional level.
Right.
Because like any club, it's run by a nucleus of people.
10 people.
Yeah, and we just keep passing, the spots back and forth, always with an eye out to include more. And at the national level, I've done some work with, the 356 group, but we're concentrating, as PCA should, to, try and bring in younger members. Guys in our 70s and 80s are not going to be around that much longer, so we're going to keep this going with, younger people. I've been to a number of parades. Yeah, I've been to Washington, D.C. back in the 70s. We did a parade, and of course the most recent one was in Stowe. We've had 2 since here in the Boston area. And I still have T-shirts from all of those, so, as we all do. But the parades are a great place to meet people from all around the country. And everybody has their own little tweaks on their own cars, which is always interesting to see. So it's for me, it's been a significant social contact outside of work. Yes, absolutely.
I agree with that. The uniqueness of this club is that it brings together people from all walks of life.
Yeah, it really does.
And
it really does.
without anybody asking or caring, we just mixed all these people together and as equals.
The people that you knew and became friends with, were they 356 owners?
He was driving a 911.
Yeah, some were, some weren't. Yeah, most of the ones I came across were by then had moved on to 911s.
Yeah. But I just wonder if you know, if the club, if the umbrella spreads and we're taking in people who have a Cayenne, if we'll have the same bond with them, because the people that you became friendly with were all interested in the driving aspect of
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
I mean, if it wasn't just
Because we knew that these cars drove like nothing else.
Yeah.
They weren't like British roadsters. They weren't like American big muscle cars, and the way they drove appealed to us. So we were kind of that niche or that group of people with similar interests in terms of what we wanted to do with cars. That other cars wouldn't answer that call.
Yeah, we didn't mention that there were Concours. Was that a sizable part of the club early on?
It was. For those of us that autocrossed and did track events, that sort of thing, COM, we would go and watch. We would have it in major areas where people could see the cars, with the expectation that it might help membership and people would get interested in what we're doing, that sort of thing.
Run through the chronology of some of the cars that you've owned.
Well, my focus has always been relatively narrow. Like Norm, I started off, in high school with a VW Beetle. And I think I paid $1,100 for it. It was 2 years old. To me, it was a brand new car. Drove that through paper routes and a couple of jobs. And then when I was a student at Maryland, I sold the Volkswagen and bought this used 356. All right, it was a little A sunroof coupe. And I had that through college. And then I decided, as the models progressed in 1965, they were bigger, heavier, faster. So I wound up with a 65 SC sunroof coupe. So it had the biggest engine, and it was the most developed, if you will, car that they manufactured at that point. The following year, they came out with the 911, and that was way out of my price range at like $59.95. There's no way I was ever going to own one of those. So that 356 I had for nearly 20 years, and along the way, I moved to the Boston area. I always wanted to have an open car, and at the time we were active in the club, and my wife at the time was running the club newsletter, and guys would call her and say, here, we put this ad in the newsletter, and some guy from Manchester, New Hampshire called and said, well, you put an ad in the newsletter, I want to sell my Speedster. Your what? And so to make a long story short, she handed me the guy's name. I called him. I went up and looked at it. It was in a barn. It had been there for a couple of years. The engine was out of it, and that was 1976. And I wound up hauling it out of the barn, and it was kind of funny. I think I paid him $2,700 for it. All right, 2 engines, ex-race car. It was silver when I got it. I went to pick it up in the barn. I had looked at it, and it was in a barn in New Hampshire with a dirt floor, and there was a post holding the barn up that was pretty decrepit, and I didn't realize it at the time, but when I got there with a trailer to pick it up, the post was set into the rear fender, and the cars got wider from the rear going forward, and I couldn't get the car out of the barn. And he's standing there, and I said, the post is in the way, and if I move the post, the barn will fall down. He goes, not my problem. So we took a hammer and we knocked the post a little to one side so we could get the car out. I had 2 buddies with me, and rolled it up, and it took me 6 months or so to put an engine together and put it in. That's a car I've now had for 42 years. Yeah. So, and I've had, some coupes along the way and, that sort of thing, but I've had, that Speedster the longest, over 40 years. But my brother has his car. He's down in Maryland. He's got a white one. He bought his, he reminds me, 10 years before I got mine. He's been a Potomac region member all these years. In fact, we just completed a 2,500-mile ride down to Helen, Georgia for a 356 event. All right, which was what they call the Southern Drive that we do every 2 years. Little buggers are out on the highway doing 70 miles an hour, getting 30 miles to the gallon. They have a great time. These are modern cars that you can continue to drive. These aren't Model A's and Model T's that are what we call parade cars, and so it's cars that I've driven to work, cars that I've driven in competition, cars that I've driven in autocrosses, rallies. I mean, the car for me did everything I wanted to do from a automotive standpoint, and they're relatively straightforward in terms of repairs and so forth. I've probably ruined as much as I've fixed over the years, but now I can pretty much fix anything on a 356 because I've done it all at least 3 times. But, my wife's driving a BMW, I open the hood, I can't even find the spark plugs. Take it to the dealer, I don't know how to fix that. So you're a car guy. No, I'm a very narrowly focused car guy.
But
Okay, and my focus is 356s.
I've seen you and you've owned 911s.
Well, yeah, right. Well, I get a book. But I mean, modern day cars, electronics and all that stuff, I can't imagine what to do with it. Bring it to these guys. Let them do the heavy lifting. But the old cars are, very straightforward. You need spark, you need gas, and a battery, and it'll go. All you have to do is fiddle around with it 12 months. We take these 2,500-mile drives with 4 or 5 guys in the caravan, and we got enough parts in the car that if something breaks, you just pull over, pull it apart, fix it, and off you go again. It's amazing.
Norm, maybe this is an obvious answer to this question, but of all the cars, including cars other than the Porsche, what's the favorite car that you've owned? Is it the 356?
Yeah. Yeah. We're-
Yeah, they just do everything you want them to do. They're not the fastest things around.
And for you, Tom, is it your Speedster?
Yeah, I would say the Speedster as compared with the Coupe. I've got a couple of Coupes. Although I am attracted, because I live in New England, to a sunroof coupe because you can open it even when the weather's not that good. The Speedster I've gotten wet a lot, right? Because they're not all that weather tight, and so its use is a little more narrow to the summer months only. I mean, the big joke for us was always 356s have great heaters. They really do, down to about 32 degrees. If it's colder than that, they don't work so good. But
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, again. And I guess it's another one of those deals and Norm would tell you the same thing, I'm sure, and that is, we like these cars so much because A, we've had them a long time, they do what we want them to do, they feel good, and nobody else has one. That's why you keep them, because you got one. Years ago, some guy asked if I'd sell my Speedster, and he said, I had a friend of his who wanted one, he gave me a huge number, and I thought, my kids were about to go to college, I didn't have a college fund, and this would have worked for that, and I thought, let me think about that for a day or so. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what, that offer that you made, that's a lot of money. I said, but if I take the money and give you the car, I'm just some guy walking around with a lot of money in his pocket. And there's a lot of guys like that. But there's only one guy driving around in a black Speedster. I think I'll keep it. And I did. And it's fun. It isn't really about the money, it's, what it does when you drive it.
Yeah, the money doesn't, well, it does matter, but it doesn't matter.
Right. As far as I'm concerned, I got $2,700 in it. It's what I paid for it. Now, I threw some money at it, I painted it, I did a couple engines, but, not real money. I mean, don't we always do these things on the cheap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the guy clear coats rust, so he doesn't have to paint it. Right? It works. And the car feels great.
I had a real shock when I put the 356 back on the road.
Back together.
And Corpo was instrumental in getting me active. And when he was telling me numbers, I thought he'd dropped a bag of marbles. I just couldn't get my head around how people were treating the 356s. And it's gotten worse since then.
Yeah.
In terms of how the car is, it isn't treated as a car. It's treated as an asset.
Right,
No,
whole different animal.
no.
Not for us.
Right.
As far as we're concerned, they're just cars, just old cars.
My retirement fund isn't driving on wheels.
Right.
Right.
And one of the smartest moves I ever made was when I put that Porsche. I had 7 registered cars in the driveway and 2 drivers. That DKW had the engine that they sold to Saab for the Saab
Right.
93.
Oh,
Ring, ding, 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 ding,
Right,
ding,
right,
ding,
cycle.
ding.
yeah.
We used to call them popcorn poppers.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish I had that car back. I had it for a while and I didn't get to do
Well, I
anything.
mean, let me prompt you and say, because I just went through this here a couple of years ago. The cars that we remember, we always remember them a little better than they were. Somewhere along the way, I got off the track of 356s, and I needed something what I thought was more reliable in New England, so I bought a Volvo 544. all right? And I had it for a couple of years, and I remember it being pretty fast, you know. And then I finally got back to Porsche, and I was still a member of the club, so we were doing the activities and so forth. But about 3 years ago, I saw what I thought was that Volvo, white car, blue interior, on eBay in Texas. And I bought it. It wasn't a lot of money. It was like 10 grand. And it was good and solid, and they shipped it up here. And I drove it around Dover and Needham.
Well, I remember
And
when you got
I thought, boy, this is a great little car, but God, I thought they were faster than this. So I tinkered with the carburetors, and I fiddled around a little bit, and I took it back out in the woods again, ran it good and hard, and it still was a little better, but it wasn't that fast. So then I went online, and I got a road and track road test report of a 1963 Volvo 544, and I read it, and 0 to 60 was 17 seconds.
Yeah.
It was slow.
Well,
Porsches were 12 seconds.
I did.
By today's standard, that's practically
Oh
walking.
my God, yeah. But
We remember these cars as much faster, much better than they really
the
were.
356 that I own, which is it's a normal 60
60 horsepower coupe.
Yeah. I think the 0 to 60 is like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's
Something
about
like that. I mean, and probably not anymore, because I think it's probably lost a
Yeah.
pony or two.
Lost a little of its
Yeah.
muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a 356 in Washington years ago. A bunch of us from the club went to the local drag strip. All right, quarter mile. How embarrassing was that? We never went back. We were doing 18-second runs. 18. You know, you could like throw a rock and get ahead of the car.
Yeah.
We're not doing this again. And the local region, we did a drag night up at Epping one year. All right, we took a 914 up there. That was like 20 seconds. It's like, we're not doing this again. It was embarrassing. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
So we tried a lot of different activities. Some worked, some didn't work so good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Well, that goes back to the automotive industry in general,
It's changing. Yeah.
Porsche in
Yeah.
specific. What is the car industry?
Right.
What is a car?
Well, when we were kids, it was all about the adventure. Now, it's just about getting from A to B. I think they've pulled the plug on the enjoyment of automobiles. And if you can get somebody into a Porsche as a driver or even as a passenger to show them how different cars can be, you know, you can really win them. But, I mean, I got grandkids that didn't get driver's licenses until they were in their 20s. It's like, what?
I'm going through
We-
that right now.
We got driver's licenses the day after we turned 16, you know, because you couldn't wait to drive a car. Now, kids today, it's like, nah, maybe later. And I got cars that, you know, kids that have been driving 356s with me. Now, my grandsons in Arizona, they're more car-oriented, more competitive. I got 4 grandsons here in the metropolitan Boston area, and, you know, they express an interest in the cars, but not in having one or driving one. Yeah, it's cool, but okay, next. It's strange. The industry has changed, not changing. We had a lot of our members who worked at dealers.
Right.
We had
Because
a
it was-
lot of dealers who weren't official dealers.
Right. Right.
Bass and Weiss is an example.
Right.
Al Alden. They
I mean,
again,
the club was much smaller, so the involvement of the dealers represented a much larger percentage of the membership than
Yeah.
it does now. I mean, we have
Yes.
people who are involved with the dealers now who are members, but they're, 5 out of 2,000 as opposed to,
Yeah, but I think back in the 60s and 70s, Porsche was a much smaller company with a much smaller advertising budget,
Right.
and a lot of the word of the cars got out by word of mouth.
right.
I mean,
And,
they
and,
didn't
and
do
so
TV
that,
ads,
and
they
that's,
didn't do-
and that's why the club was important to the,
Absolutely.
the club was relatively more important to the brand
Yes.
as an advertiser, as a spokesperson.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm afraid now, looking at it overall, it's just a bunch of old guys with old cars.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the club isn't run by Cayenne drivers and Macan people.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
kind of like, and they've got a huge advertising budget, and they're
Right.
very successful at what they do.
Right.
I mean, my understanding is that they have the largest profit margin of any manufacturer in the world, including Mercedes and Tesla and all the rest.
Right.
You know, so and it's because of the cars they build. What do you think of the newest Porsches? I can remember when they released, and I drove out to Tech Tactics to see it, the new Cayenne, and it was in Springfield or something. We had a Tech Tactics out there, and they had one on the at the lobby of the hotel, and I saw it. And by then, of course, SUVs had really taken off, and they'd been running for quite a while, Ford Explorers and all that. And now here's Porsche, and they're going to come out with an SUV. And I looked at it and I went, boy, these guys, God, did they miss the market? It's too late. Everybody already got their SUVs. What are they thinking? I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, for some reason, I guess I pictured Porsche as kind of a, maybe not, at the very least, it's not an elitist car, but it's certainly not a car that anybody needs. It's a car that people buy because they want it. There's a difference. You can get to school in a Chevy Suburban,
Right.
okay, but they decide they want a Cayenne. And Porsche clearly knew or guessed right on where that market was going, because those SUVs, maybe they didn't save the company because it wasn't in, you know, desperate straits, but the fact of the matter is it's just a huge company now because of that, because of the SUV. And now they come out with a Panamera. Now we're looking at electric cars. I mean, they're a real force to be reckoned with as a manufacturer, not just a manufacturer of sports cars.
Right.
It's absolutely amazing.
Our members who have a four-door Porsche also have another Porsche.
Yes, right.
And
That goes back to the 70s when they shifted from the sports car to the luxury personal car.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, a conscious effort.
Yeah, I mean, Norm, it's very interesting to hear you say that, because from my perspective, and I'm only a little bit younger than you are, although I was not as involved in Porsches in those years because I started with my dad's, but then went away and now came back. But I that's a theme that I would have never come across, was that there was a big shift in '74 that from a sports car to a personal luxury car.
Yeah.
That I would think that most people would look at the 911s of those days and say they're 911s, they're sports cars.
I had, when I was at Rachel, I don't know how many prospects I had living on the edge of Hingham. How many prospects I had who would like to have a Porsche. Not because they wanted to drive a Porsche, because they wanted the world to know they could afford a Porsche.
Right.
And that's a valid market
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's
division.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the car industry?
Right.
What is a car?
Well, when we were kids, it was all about the adventure. Now, it's just about getting from A to B. I think they've pulled the plug on the enjoyment of automobiles. And if you can get somebody into a Porsche as a driver or even as a passenger to show them how different cars can be, you know, you can really win them. But, I mean, I got grandkids that didn't get driver's licenses until they were in their 20s. It's like, what?
I'm going through that right now.
We got driver's licenses the day after we turned 16, you know, because you couldn't wait to drive a car. Now, kids today, it's like, nah, maybe later. And I got cars that, you know, kids that have been driving 356s with me. Now, my grandsons in Arizona, they're more car-oriented, more competitive. I got 4 grandsons here in the metropolitan Boston area, and, you know, they express an interest in the cars, but not in having one or driving one. Yeah, it's cool, but okay, next. It's strange. The industry has changed. Not
The
changing,
whole
changed.
psychology.
Yeah.
I learned to drive on a farm-oil tractor, cultivating corn. I was in 3rd grade.
Right. And by the 4th grade, you know how to do a clutch, you know how to back it up, go forward, the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As I got older, I grew up on Long Island right after the war. It was fairly undeveloped yet. And somebody always had a car. And people let me drive. I can't tell you the number of times I came home and my father takes me aside. He said, "What have you been doing now?" And somebody's mother had seen me driving his car, knew I wasn't old enough, called home, and I had to deny it. When I turned 16, so I was driving reliably, comfortably, you know, confidently. When I turned 16, my mother took me over to the registry and registered me for a learner's permit. I signed all the papers and I had this learner's permit. I walked from this wall to that wall, across the lobby of the registry, and tried to make an appointment to take a driver's test. And the gal looked at this learner's permit. She said, "Is this right? You just got your learner's permit?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I can't give you a test appointment. You don't know how to drive." I said, "Oh, yeah, of course I do." She refused to give me a test appointment for, I don't know, a month or something. But
Because I don't think when I got my license in Massachusetts, I think that you just went the same day and did everything.
Yeah, right, they'd have,
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta believe that's gonna impact PCA as the demographics of membership starts down that rabbit hole, all right, where everybody's getting older, and eventually they're gonna kind of knock on the door and say, "Hey, I need your driver's license." So then the question, of course, to the club is, all right, well then how do you include younger people? We're going through this with the 356 route, same sort of thing, to keep the membership vital and to keep the activities appropriate, all right, to suit now a completely different type of car. Well, the DEs are certainly doing that because it's the only place you can run some of these things. So that is definitely and probably will continue to attract competitive people, that sort of thing. Is it enough to run it? I don't know. What do they got? 200,000 or 300,000 members worldwide in PCA? Something like that?
Yeah, worldwide or nationwide?
Worldwide.
Is it 85,000 members? Is that
85,
right, Sterling?
yeah.
It's 85?
Yeah.
In the United States, and 160 or something worldwide. Largest mark club in the world.
In the world, right.
But, you know, the future of DE is a little iffy because the cars get so fast.
Right.
It's scary to get out there. I'm not sure that it's an activity that makes a lot of sense with the litigation in the United States. There's a lot of risk management going on with the insurance with the Porsche Club of America, so.
So it's for me, it's been a significant social contact outside of work. Yes, absolutely.
agree with that. The uniqueness of this club is that it brings together people from all walks of life. We just mixed all these people together and as equals.